What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. I hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. Last week, we did one bold prediction for each team in the SEC, but today we're going to be moving on to the Big Ten and doing one bold prediction for each team in the Big Ten East Conference. Just before we do get into the video, as I sort of said last time, just remember that these are bold predictions. I don't necessarily think that these are or aren't going to happen, but these are just things that teams should be striving for or not striving for, things that are just possibilities in the upcoming season. Also, if you do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more content just like this, but let's get right into the video. So the first team that we got today is Ohio State, and my bold prediction for them, OSU gets back to the national championship game. Now, obviously, the Buckeyes are coming off a fantastic season where they went undefeated all the way until the national championship game where they ended up losing to that great Alabama team. Now, a lot of people were talking about them not playing too many games last year and, they shouldn't have been postseason eligible, but at the end of the day, Ohio State had a great, fantastic season, extremely talented. Now, they do have a couple of pieces to replace. We're looking at several pieces on defense, a couple on the O-line, but as we'll talk about more in just a second, this O-line has really the potential to be fantastic this year. And then obviously you lose Justin Fields, Trey Sermon as well as your big ones on offense. But OSU's really big concern here is at quarterback. Obviously, you got Stroud back there, but both Miller, McCord, highly rated recruits. I think no matter what Ohio State or who Ohio State ends up sort of going with, I think that they are in really good hands. But overall, again, as I was saying before, they're shaping up to have one of the best offensive lines, not only in college football this year, but I'm looking back at some of the past years, and this could be one of the top O-lines that we've seen in a while. They've also got a lot of their big pieces, particularly their top two wide receivers returning on offense. You got Olave, obviously, and then Garrett Wilson as well. So I definitely like Ohio State's chances this year. Indiana, next up, I got Indiana does not fall off. That's sort of a broad, bold prediction, but I've been sort of looking through the internet and looking at comments and what people have been saying everywhere. And a lot of people are saying the complete opposite of this, but I don't really see why. Indiana had a great breakout season last year, I think, for their program. Went 6-2, 6-1 in Big Ten play. Yes, they were a bit of a different team at the end of the year when Michael Penix tore his ACL. The offense was not fantastic. But from everything I've seen, they're still targeting him to be back for the season opener. From what I've heard, and again, I still think Indiana has a very solid defense. We saw it all last year. I don't really expect it to change this year. Only concern I do have for Indiana, I look at the first 3 weeks. Week 1, Iowa. Week 3, Cincinnati. I think two teams that are really going to have great years this year. But I think those games are going to be big telltales for Indiana's season. But from everything that I've seen on paper, I mean, Indiana should be right in these games, and they have the right, to be favored, if not very close in both of these games as well. Let's move on to Penn State. Now, Penn State is an interesting one. They were in a down year last year, but my bold prediction is they bounce back. They bounce back big. Penn State gets 11 wins this year. Last season, it was sort of the tale of two halves. You started the season off with a program worst 5 straight losses to start the year, but you won your last 4 games as well. Ended the year off really hot. They had some outstanding play from their defense, averaged only allowing 17.25 points per game over those course of the last 4 games, but I expect that defense to still be very good, even with the loss of Parsons leading the way of the losses on defense. Now, they did have offensive struggles towards the end of last year, really the course of the entire year. So they fired their offensive coordinator, but I think you got some real potential here for a bounce back year offensively. I think the X factor for Penn State has to be Sean Clifford at quarterback. Didn't have a great year last year. He passed 152 for 251, almost 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns, but he threw 9 interceptions. Penn State did not put up a lot of points in many of these games. Again, even when they really got hot in those final 4 games of the season, not high point totals for them. But I do think it's a better situation for the offense this year. You're returning a couple guys. The new offensive coordinator, I think, is something that could definitely help Sean Clifford in that offense over at Penn State. And I think the defense will be good. As for Maryland, this was a tough one for me, but I went with Maryland overall as a team takes a step forward because Tagovailoa will also take a step forward and be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Maryland only played 5 games last year, but I really liked what I saw, especially at that quarterback position. Obviously, he's an Alabama transfer, former 5-star, also brother of Tua, who's already in the NFL. And we saw glimpses of him starting to live up to the sort of expectations that I think a lot of people have for him. 4 games, passed about 62% through about 1,000 total yards, had 9 total touchdowns. The only concern here, he threw 7 interceptions and had 2 different games against Indiana and Northwestern where he threw 3 interceptions apiece. But as long as he can sort of get that accuracy together, not turn the ball over, I mean, what I saw from him was definitely some really positive signs. And if obviously you're good at the quarterback position, I think Maryland has a really good shot as well to sort of take a step forward as a program. Next up, we have the Michigan Wolverines. Now, this one was really tough for me because if you guys watch the channel, you guys will know that I am a Wolverines fan. But I didn't want to be biased. I couldn't find a way to really justify a good, bold prediction. So the one that I ended up going with is that Michigan in some way will have to reevaluate Jim Harbaugh after this 2021 season. Now, again, I didn't want to do this for the bold prediction, but I wasn't happy with the extension that Jim Harbaugh got in the offseason. And just, I don't think the position for the Michigan Wolverines is very good this year, if I'm being completely honest. Michigan fired Don Brown, who was the defensive coordinator, which was the right move. But we hired a new young defensive coordinator who's a former linebacker coach of the Baltimore Ravens, who's young, hasn't called the plays by himself. And although I do have high expectations for him, I just don't know if he's necessarily going to work right away for a defense that needs a ton of help after last year, especially in the secondary. Now, the only thing that does point to sort of some good signs here is that he was a linebacker coach, right? Which we did have some issues there last year. It was more like deeper into our secondary. But we also lost a lot of veteran pieces in the draft, Kwity Paye among some other guys as well. So definitely some big steps that we got to take there. Also, the quarterback situation's an issue. We had a lot of sort of issues with it last year. Now Joe Milton transfers out. We get Alan Bowman transferring in. So you got a QB competition there, but it's not as great as some of the other quarterback competitions around college football. We got Alan Bowman, and Texas Tech fans will tell you that he's really similar to Joe Milton in terms of his lack of accuracy. He can throw the ball far, but he threw 7 interceptions last year. McNamara, I mean, we saw a lot of him last year, some good glimpses, some bad glimpses, but overall can't really throw the ball deep. So what happened was sort of the defenses that were playing us started playing more shallow. And those short passes that were working originally didn't really work. And then, of course, we got J.J. McCarthy in there as well, the 5-star coming in from IMG Academy. Now, from everything I've heard, he's not going to be the week 1 starter, but who knows? I don't know. It's just not a great situation, I think, overall for the Michigan Wolverines. There's a lot of questions. And unfortunately for Jim Harbaugh, if the Michigan Wolverines have a season anywhere close to the season it was last year, he's going to be in trouble. Rutgers obviously took a huge step last year. My bold prediction is they will take another huge step. And why not just say they'll get to a bowl game? Rutgers haven't been to a bowl game since 2014, but had a great sort of step forward after some really, really bad years after that. They went 3-6 last year, but really it seemed better than that. They nearly won 3 more games. They lost 3 games by 1 score. 2 of those they blew a lead that they had, and I think the leads were late as well. For Rutgers, it's more about who's returning for them than what's coming in and what's new. Bo Melton leading the way. I mean, they got experience on this team, and I think that, that's going to be a huge, huge thing because I really do think that this Rutgers team was a sort of new look already last year, so just building off what they did in 2020 and 2021, I think is going to happen. For Michigan State, I said Michigan State will struggle this year. Now, I know some people aren't going to like this from a lot of things that I've heard. A lot of people really like Mel Tucker. I wasn't a fan. It looked a lot of times last year that like the Spartans were going to be able to do some damage in the Big Ten. They had 2 ranked wins, but they ended the season 2-5. But this year I think could be some real problems. Michigan State historically has had some quarterback issues. Now, you're going in this year without Rocky Lombardi, so you have to find another quarterback as well. Now, they do have a couple of options. Peyton Thorne probably being the guy that really sticks out at quarterback, if that's who they'll actually end up going with. But I don't know if that's good enough. The Big Ten schedule is not as good as like the SEC, for example, but the Big Ten, you're still playing a lot of quality teams essentially every single week. I don't know if Michigan State's at that level, at least until they figure out the quarterback issue. So yeah, Michigan State will struggle this year. But anyways, guys, if you did make it to this point in the video, thank you. Let me know your thoughts on these bold predictions down in the comment section below. Let me know if you agree or disagree, and I also want to hear some of your bold predictions for some of these teams as well. But if you did enjoy today's video, please do me a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up button and hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs. It only takes you like 1 second to do, but it does me a huge favor as we're trying to push to 7,000 subscribers, and you can see more content just like this that's going to be coming up in the near future. As always, guys, though, thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you again next time.